Welcome to this episode of BizTakeouts, Bizcommunity's soundbite-sized news to go, made possible today by Momentum Metropolitan, one of South Africa's largest insurance-based financial services group. I'm your host, Angie Lawrence, and I'm very excited to introduce today's guest. Lettie-Basani Phume is the Group Human Capital Executive at Momentum Metropolitan, and today we will be discussing the company's global benchmark recognition, having earned its fourth consecutive certification from the International Top Employer Institute, as well as the ever-evolving workplace, employee expectations, and the future of working from home. Welcome, Lettie.
Hello, Angie. Thank you for having me.
So, Lettie, firstly, a huge congratulations on your Top Employer certification. Please, can you tell us what certification is and how it is awarded?
Certainly, and thank you, Angie. We are very proud of this certification. It's the fourth one, the fourth consecutive certification since we started entering. So what the Top Employer Institute is an organization that was established 30 years ago, and it is a global authority in recognizing excellence in people practices within organizations. Participation is voluntary for organizations who choose to participate, but it means that everyone that participates of the organizations get to showcase their people management practices, which are then strictly and rigorously interrogated and scrutinized against best practice and global standards. And we're talking here, Angie, practices in excess of 300. So it is quite an intense and a credible exercise. So this certification affords us bragging rights as an employer of choice. And if I were to share some numbers with you just for this year, in excess of 2,000 companies were certified this year. In fact, the exact number is 2,302 companies which were certified. 138 of those are in South Africa, of which we are one. And globally, for financial services, it's 257 companies. So quite a proud moment for us.
Definitely something to be proud of. And I mean, you've touched on a lot of these topics already, but can you just tell us, in an ever-evolving workplace, why does Momentum Metropolitan think that the Top Employer certification adds value?
It adds value, Angie, because we are constantly looking to improve on the experience we afford our employees. And we do this by ensuring that our people management practices continue to meet and at times exceed global standards. So through this participation, we have great insights on what is working well and what still needs improvement. And all of this is done in the interest of our employees. So we participate because we want Momentum Metropolitan to be experienced as a great place to work. So this is why the insights that we get from the certification and the feedback that we get adds so much value for us.
Thanks so much, Lettie. And then while we're talking about the expectations, have you seen a shift in expectations from employees in recent years? And what are some of the demands that employees insist on, or at least take for granted?
No, absolutely. The world of work has changed and it continues to rapidly evolve as well, Angie. So some of the things that we see from employees now is an ask or a demand for flexibility. And that talks to the hybrid way of work. Employees are now reassessing their priorities and wanting to fit in the work-life integration, to be able to be a part of their personal lives and their work life as much as they can. We also see a shift, a very great shift now towards employee well-being. Employees are much more vocal and cognizant of the importance of all-round and holistic well-being. So companies are now strengthening their employee value proposition as it relates to well-being. Employees are also now more vocal about meaningful work, wanting to be a part of a company that drives meaningful work, a company that starts everything from a purpose, so a purpose-driven organization, and that permeates into meaningful work as well. There's also a great shift around ESG, which is the environmental, social, and governance policies and practices. So this is really, ESG is really a set of the practices, policies, and procedures and metrics that organizations implement in order to limit the negative impact or to enhance a positive impact on the environment, the society, and the governance around that. We're seeing employees being very vocal in their interviews to test and assess the brand of any employer that they're interviewing with in terms of social responsibility. Employees want to align themselves with brands who are woke as it relates to environmental and social issues, companies that are aligned to improving the environment and also the societies within which they operate.
So, Lettie, you mentioned a lot of things that have been changing, and one of them was the work environment. But I want to also touch on that this year, Momentum Metropolitan has scored well in the shape category, and that it evaluates the work environment, digitization of HR processes, and the management of change. Can you give us some examples of how your organization has excelled in these areas?
Yeah, no, absolutely. The working environment project for us has been a long time coming. So we were cognizant of the fact that we need to create and foster an environment where employees thrive. So it meant a complete overhaul and revamp and improvement of our workspaces. Our workspaces are now built for collaboration. They are tech enabled, and they're built to be a home away from home. We also encourage employees not to work just at their desks. We've got workspaces that are conducive for employees to just maybe smell the roses, have a great cup of coffee while they're at it, but also collaborate with their peers. Most of us don't even sit at our desks anymore. We've got ideation rooms, and we've got spaces where we can collaborate effectively. Also, we've invested a lot in technology to enable us to work remotely as well, to incorporate and to foster the hybrid way of work. It was important for us to make sure that our technology is also improved to enable that. From a improvement of HR tech, I'm proud to say that we've done a lot of work there, specifically within the recruitment, selection, onboarding, and induction piece of work in order for us to improve our employee experience. So what we specifically got the certification for this year was around the piece of work that we've done in our offboarding platform. So offboarding is when we see employees off, when their time with us is done, but we make sure that that process is tech-enabled, it is seamless, so that even when employees are leaving, they're still talking about the great experience that they have with Momentum Metropolitan. And lastly, Angie, around change, we are driving an enabling culture as an organization, a culture that will enable, amongst other things, change resilience. We now know more than ever that change is constant. The pandemic has shown us that one moment you're in the office and the next you have to work from home. Our employees have to be change resilient. So we have gone and put out modules and tools and also enabling practices to help our employees to navigate change and to become change resilient as well.
So while we're talking about change, what do you think the work environment and work from home situation will be like in 5 to 10 years' time? And is working from home here to stay?
So more like the hybrid way of work is here to stay. I think the working environment will keep on evolving as the business needs arise and as the business dictates, but also as employees dictate how they want to show up in the working environment. So my view, Angie, is that the hybrid way of work is here to stay, which means a blend of working in the office and working from home. Employees love and enjoy the flexibility of being able to partake in work and also their personal lives at the same time. Because as I alluded to earlier, we're talking a work-life integration. The days of work-life balance are far behind us. We can never strike that balance. In fact, that is just a myth. It's more about an integration of work and personal life, or an infusion, as one of our directors put it recently in an interview. So I think the hybrid environment is here to stay. I think it is also a great employee value proposition to allow the flexibility around hybrid, obviously where it makes business sense, because in some instances, it does not make business sense. And some of our employees have to be present in the office, but we've built our offices to be comfortable for employees to be there. This also, though, this shift or this change around flexibility and hybrid has presented us with an opportunity to review how we manage employees. So for us to start and maintain a culture where we measure results and we measure deliverables and we contract out correctly from the onset and not measure the wrong things, such as presenteeism.
That makes such perfect sense. I'm liking the idea of measuring things based on a project basis. And also, like you said, the words to focus on probably this year and Years to come, fusion and integration. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Talking about all of these integrated things that we're doing, what are employees most concerned about, and how does HR honestly and bravely tap into seeking out truthful feedback?
Yeah, so it touches on a little bit about what our employees are, with what they look out for when they come in, or some of the shifts that have happened. So employees are concerned about meaningful work, or work that has a purpose. There's a survey that was conducted recently that shows that employees, at least in that survey, 70% of the respondents or the employees attach a lot of meaning with regards to their purpose to their actual work. So employees are looking for meaningful work. Employees are concerned about their well-being. It's very important for companies to start focusing on employee well-being. So employees are concerned about that, and they are quite vocal about it. They are concerned about the social standing of a company that responds to the environment and the society in a positive way, and it is invested in improving that. But also employees are concerned about a sense of belonging. We all know now that creating a sense of belonging makes it conducive for sustainable performance over time of our employees' productivity. It enables productivity, and we're talking sustained productivity, and it helps companies to unleash that discretionary effort. Once employees feel that they are part of a bigger picture and they have a place in the organization, that they actually belong and they can resonate with the purpose and the direction of that organization, Angie, that they're not just fitting in, they're not trying to be cookie cutter parts of themselves. They are belonging, they come as they are, and they belong in that environment. Obviously, creating an environment of belonging doesn't mean it's a free for all. Every company makes sure that it's got values that govern what that belonging looks like. So each and every employee then will evaluate and test if they can be part of that organization, and if the direction of the organization, the purpose, the vision of the organization, and the values resonate with them. So those four things are quite key, and this is what employees are looking most for. In terms of the response from human capital, we enable the business to gather that feedback. It's very important. So through various listening strategies that we employ, at Momentum Metropolitan, as it is now, one of the two big projects that we have in place, and we're doing purpose work. The other one is around diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. Our employee value proposition encapsulates a lot of employee well-being. So we're well set there, and obviously looking for ways to improve that as we go along.
Nice. So talking about all of these new expectations that you're seeing, they're probably not that new, but when did you notice the shift in the concerns and expectations that were being voiced? Do you think it was round about the pandemic time, or before?
Yeah, you're right, Angie, in saying that these are not new. These have been, with us probably for the last 10 to 15 years. However, the pandemic has forced us to review priorities as human beings, because we were confronted with our mortality and the fragility of life. So the pandemic has then also, in a way, the gift of the pandemic, one of the gifts rather, was giving our employees a voice. Each and every one of us as employees have realized that we have a voice, that it is actually okay to review our priorities and make sure that we are involved in something when we talk about work that resonates with us. It is meaningful to us. It makes sense to us.
And what do you think are the most exciting developments or trends in human or people management practices for 2024? I think we've touched on this before, but I'm excited to hear more.
Yeah. But yeah, just to re-emphasize them, right? I think culture is playing a big role as a trend. Organizations are focusing on building cultures that are conducive for employees to thrive. And within there sits the concept of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, which companies are driving now. And these are now viewed from a strategic business lens and not just a people strategy point of view. The mobility of talent is now very topical, because talent isn't what it used to be. People are no longer stuck to their job roles or their titles, but there is an encouragement of reskilling talent, upskilling talent, and cross-skilling talent, so that we can ensure that our talent is mobile and they are engaged in meaningful work. There is a strong focus on career development and talent mobility. Obviously, it would be amiss of me not to mention generative AI. So balancing artificial intelligence, but with human qualities, remembering that we must always think human first. And tech is here to enable us to do that. Tech is here to improve our way of work, not to replace the human touch. It's very important for me to mention that the human touch will always be there. Tech is not here to replace. When we talk automation, we're not talking replacing. And that needs to be very clear, made very clear, because a lot of people are still quite, looking at tech very suspiciously to say, will it replace my job? It won't. It means you just need to learn different things and different ways of doing things. And we let tech free us as human beings to focus on the more higher order skills that require human to human interaction. And then the hybrid way of work will be here with us to stay, as I said. And lastly, there is now a fusion, our favorite word in this interview, Angie. There is now a fusion of types of employees. And by that, I'm talking about the different contracts that we have. You now have your permanent workers. Now you have gig workers as well. You have contract and contingent workers. So that trend is also growing. And what businesses are now thinking about is how do you then create an employee value proposition that is meaningful to this bouquet of different employees that you now have.
Yeah, that word is sticking with us.
Yeah.
Fusion all the way. Now, Letty, this is probably my favorite question for this interview, also the last question. Have you ever had a disastrous job interview? And did you get the job? And what did you learn?
So I'll answer your last question first. No, I did not get the job. The interview was an absolute disaster. I think I was probably in my early 20s and I was still studying. And I thought at some point I was looking to be a cabin crew attendant. I think I was grabbed by the glamorous culture, at least back then. It was quite a glamorous occupation, to have, because it meant traveling throughout the world. But there were other skills, obviously, that had to be taken into account that I naively went into the interview without taking into account. So it was a disaster for two reasons. And the first one is, and I'll admit to it, I was ill prepared for the interview. Like I said, there were other skills and competencies that came in as important for that particular role, which I had not prepared myself for. And when the questions were posed and the experience was tested and assessed, I just couldn't match up to that. Secondly, though, and this is now through the lens of an adult and a seasoned human capital practitioner, I must say, though, that the panel of interviewees were not very welcoming. I think back in those days, coming to an interview was seen as a form of intimidation as well. So I was sitting on the one side of the table, the three of them were sitting on the other. It was quite intimidating. It was not warm. It was not welcoming. So I left there with a bruised ego. Setting aside the matter that was ill prepared, but I left with a bruised ego. And one of my key learnings there is that preparedness obviously is key. And I know that now as an adult and a seasoned professional. But also the second thing, which I think is very important for companies out there and those of us who represent companies in public platforms, we are not doing anybody any favors when we invite them for an interview. Those days are gone. When potential employees meet us and sacrifice their time to come and give us their time and talk to us and sell their skills to us, we should see that through the lens of humility. It does not mean that we've got power over them or we've got stakes raised up higher than they do. They are professionals in their own right. And first and foremost, they are human beings. We should never lose that human touch. When we speak to people who are here looking for jobs, it doesn't make them less than. So one of the biggest lessons was that, please, in everything that we do, we see people as human first and foremost. And this is one of our mantras in human capital at Momentum Metropolitan: think human first. The person that you're engaging with has hopes, they have dreams, they have a life, they have battles that they're fighting. The least we could do when we meet with them is to be kind, hear out their story, encourage them, and leave them with a positivity when they depart from the interview. Even if they don't get the job, they must just leave with a bounce in their steps and think, sure, I went for this conversation. I was treated like a human being. I was respected. I was made to feel welcome. It was a kind, professional interaction. And I learned a thing or two about myself as well.
That's really lovely to hear. I mean, it's been a while since I've been for an interview, but I think it's changed a lot. And it's nice to hear that it's more of an exchange and not sort of this, you sit there and you get asked questions and you either get it or you don't get it. You're left with an impression either way, good or bad. And that's a wrap on today's show, with thanks to Momentum Metropolitan for making it possible. It's Biz Takeouts. Take it where you like it, when you like it. Until next time.